Hello, Chillify, I'm ready. Opening my eyes, I found myself sitting in class 12A1. The suffocating air, a mix of sweat and old paper, was stirred by the buzzing of a rickety ceiling fan. Our math teacher, half-bald, droned on from the podium, his voice a monotonous lullaby. Everything was so familiar it was terrifying. I dug my nails into my palm. The sharp pain spreading through me confirmed this was no dream. In my past life, I died in a cheap, dark, damp rented room, a thick pile of debt notices bearing Ethan's name clutched in my hand. He was the one who promised me a brilliant future, who said that academics were for the weak. He told me this era needed business minds, a daring spirit, and that I was a born leader destined to stand by his side. I believed him. I gave up my dream of elite university, the most prestigious school in the country, the one I'd fought tooth and nail for throughout high school to even hope to touch. I threw away my books, spent all my family's savings, even borrowed from everyone I knew to start a business with him. The company went bankrupt. He fled with all the money and my best friend, Mia, leaving me alone to bear a colossal debt and the curses of everyone. Jane, your brain truly is just for decoration. What age are we in that you still believe in exams? What I need is money, connections. Do you have them? Those were Ethan's last words to me. That look of contempt, I wouldn't forget it even in death. And now, I've been reborn, exactly 1 year before the college entrance exams, before any of the tragedies had even begun. On the board, 365 days until the college entrance exams, glowed a dazzling blood red. A crumpled ball of paper flew directly into the back of my head, severing my thoughts. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. That familiar, lazy voice, laced with a hint of mockery, echoed from the back desk. Jane, the teacher's so boring I could die. Let's go to the rooftop, big business awaits. It was Ethan. Still the same words, still that arrogant, center of the universe, tone. In my past life, those very words had me naively skipping class, running after him to the rooftop to hear about some grand $1 million fantasy project, my first step into hell. A few classmates turned to look at me, especially Mia, who was sitting at the desk in front. She turned around, a mocking smirk playing on her lips. She was waiting for me to act like a foolish dog, obedient to Ethan. But this time was different. I slowly picked up the paper from the floor, didn't even bother to open it, and casually tossed it straight into the trash can next to the teacher's desk. A perfect arc. The entire class fell silent. Ethan's laughter froze. He frowned, clearly disbelieving. In his eyes, I was a loyal puppy, ready to come running with a single wave of his hand. Mia, too, was stunned, the smile vanishing from her lips. Just then, the math teacher tapped his ruler on the board. All right, this last problem is an Olympic-style question. Whoever solves it gets 10 bonus points on their final exam. A complex integral problem appeared. The class fell silent, only the faint scratching of pens before silence descended once more. This was a problem meant to identify the brightest students. In my past life, I'd tried it too, but with Ethan occupying all my thoughts, I couldn't focus and gave up. Mia, the class's academic star, raised her hand. She went to the board and wrote a long solution, but eventually got stuck at a crucial step and shamefully sat back down. You forgot a formula, didn't you? The teacher sighed, sounding disappointed. No one else dared to speak. Ethan, at the back of the class, let out a loud yawn, making it clear he found all this utterly boring. He was always like that, feigning disdain for academics to hide his own incompetence. I raised my hand, then stood up. All eyes swiveled towards me, filled with astonishment, doubt, and even ridicule. Someone like me, who always trailed after Ethan, daring to solve an Olympic math problem. Without a word, I walked straight to the podium, picked up the chalk. The knowledge I had once discarded, the formulas I had deemed useless, suddenly flooded my mind. 10 years of struggling with debt in my past life had forged in me a sharp mind and a terrifyingly logical way of thinking. I didn't solve it the usual way. I used a different methodology, a bolder approach that I'd only accidentally stumbled upon in an advanced reference book in my past life. Line by line, quick and precise. The entire class went from murmuring to absolute silence. The teacher's expression shifted from surprise to astonishment, then his eyes lit up brightly. Ethan sat at the back of the class, his yawns long forgot. He sat up straight, his narrow eyes squinting, staring intently at my back. Done, the last stroke of chalk finished. The answer was perfectly displayed. I put the chalk down, turned around, my gaze sweeping across the class, lingering for a second on Mia's face, pale with envy, then locking onto Ethan, who sat petrified at the back of the class. I subtly curved my lips. "Teacher, I'm finished." The dismissal bell rang right then. Without waiting for the teacher's reaction, I calmly walked back to my seat to pack up my books. In this entire life, I have only one goal: elite university. Anyone or anything that stands in my way, I will eliminate. Just as I stepped out of the classroom, a hand grabbed me with surprising force. Ethan stood blocking my path, his handsome face now filled with confusion and anger. "Jane, what's wrong with you?" I shook his hand off, my voice as cold as ice. "I woke up." He froze, then frowned again, reverting to his usual nonchalant demeanor. "Stop pretending this academic ace act doesn't suit you. You know that path of exams isn't for us." I scoffed, a clear laugh that sent shivers down his spine. "Sorry, you might be mistaken. That's my path, not ours." I lifted my head, meeting his gaze with an unprecedented resolve. "My goal is elite university. As for you, Ethan, please don't stand in my way." With that, I sidestepped him, leaving behind a stunned Ethan and a grinding-toothed Mia standing in the distance. The road ahead was long, the air behind me burned, and I could distinctly feel the gazes of Ethan and Mia, sharp enough to bore holes through me. But I didn't turn back. The road ahead was long, and to look back was to lose. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I turned into the largest bookstore near school. In my past life, after I abandoned my studies, this place became a stranger to me. Now, the familiar scent of paper and ink filled my nostrils, bringing with it a strange sense of peace. I needed to buy back all the reference books and practice tests from recent years. I couldn't go into this battle empty-handed. As I stood in the advanced physics section, a low, indifferent voice spoke beside me. "This book has a wrong formula on page 214. I turned, startled. Standing there was Liam, the top student in our grade, Mia's direct rival for a guaranteed spot at elite university. He wore a clean, crisp uniform, silver-rimmed glasses, and exuded an aura of detachment, as if untouched by the mundane world. In my past life, he and I had almost no connection. He was a shining star in the sky, while I was just a speck of dust on the ground, blindly chasing after a false son named Ethan. Seeing me lost in thought, Liam simply pushed up his glasses, his eyes completely unruffled. "You don't believe me." I snapped back to reality, put down the book, and picked up one from a different publisher. "Thank you for the reminder." Liam glanced at me with a hint of surprise. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to trust his words so unconditionally. He gave a slight nod, then turned and left. His tall, slender back was perfectly straight. After buying a thick stack of books, I carried them, heavy, back home. The moment I opened the door, the atmosphere inside pressed down on my chest like a heavy stone. The cramped, old, single-story house filled with worn-out furniture. My mother sat picking vegetables, her mouth a constant stream of complaints. "The electricity bill this month is up again, food prices are rising too, everything's increasing." And Jane is about to take her college exams, tuition fees, study materials, that's another considerable expense. My father sat on the old sofa, eyes glued to the TV, pretending not to hear anything. That was his way of dealing with all family problems: silence and evasion. Seeing me home, my mother immediately vented her anger on me. "You're back, are you? Look what you bought. Books, more books. Are you planning to eat books for dinner?" She snatched a book from my hand, flipped through it, then threw it onto the table. "Listen to your mother, study just enough. What's the use of a girl studying too much? Look at Ethan from the Yee family. He's your age and already thinking about business. I hear he's about to open a company. You should learn from him. Just get a stable job later, marry a good husband, and that's enough." A company? I laughed coldly inside. Yes, that company was built with my mother's life savings, with the deed to this house, and with my entire future in my past life. I took a deep breath, suppressing the surge of emotions within me. "Mom, you don't need to worry about my tuition. I'll get a scholarship." "A scholarship?" My mother laughed as if she'd heard a joke. Don't you dare dream such impossible dreams. If you win a scholarship, the sun will rise in the west." I didn't argue anymore. With this family, talking was useless. Only results would be the most powerful answer. The next day, just as I predicted, rumors about me began to spread throughout the school. I heard Jane got dumped by Ethan. She was so shocked she went crazy and started pretending to be an academic genius. No way, she's just doing it on purpose to get young Master Ethan's attention. It's that soft bait-to-hook-hard trick. The whispers and gossip were like invisible needles piercing me from all sides. I didn't need to think to know who the mastermind behind it was. Mia was always best at these kinds of tricks. During lunch break, I was eating in the cafeteria when a lunch tray was slammed down on the table opposite me, letting out a jarring clatter. Mia sat down, followed by a few of her close friends. She flashed a fake smile, her tone dripping with feigned concern. "Jane, I heard you and Ethan had a fight. Don't be so childish. He only wants what's best for you." I slowly swallowed the bite of rice in my mouth, not bothering to look up. Wants what's best for me by asking me to skip class to discuss big business ventures? Mia, your logic is truly peak. Mia's smile faltered and her friends looked at each other, bewildered. What do you mean? Her face paled slightly. Ethan was just worried you were studying too hard. He wanted you to relax a bit. Only then did I put down my chopsticks, looking directly into her eyes. My clear eyes were now as cold as ice. Is that so? Well then, my dear best friend, please go tell him for me that I don't feel burdened at all. On the contrary, I find using my brain to solve an integral problem much easier than using it to comprehend his magnificent business plans. I paused, a slight, knowing smile playing on my lips. Oh, but perhaps you understand it better than I do, don't you? After all, you two are soulmates. The word soulmates was emphasized by me like a knife stabbing directly into Mia's heart. In my past life, this was precisely the title she used to stay by Ethan's side legitimately, while I, like a fool, was being cuckolded without ever knowing. Mia's face instantly went deathly pale, then flushed crimson with anger and guilt. She trembled, pointing a finger at me. What nonsense are you spouting? Nonsense? I raised an eyebrow. Did I say anything wrong? The air was taut as a bowstring. The entire cafeteria seemed to have noticed our table. Just as Mia was about to explode, a tall figure overshadowed our table. Ethan, who knew how long he'd been standing there, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a water bottle, his expression lazy but his eyes sharp as knives. "What's so enjoyable you're talking about?" he said, his tone casual but carrying an invisible pressure. The moment Mia saw Ethan, her expression instantly changed. Her eyes reddened and her voice became aggrieved, as if she'd just suffered unimaginable bullying. "Ethan, I just wanted to advise Jane, but I didn't expect her to misunderstand me." Ethan glanced at Mia, a flicker of softness in his eyes, then turned back to me, his brows knitted tightly. "Jane, that's enough." He set the water bottle down on the table with a dry thud. "Mia was kind enough to care for you. If you don't appreciate it, fine, but why say such harsh things?" I let out a laugh, clear but chilling the air around us by several degrees. "Kindness, care?" I stood up straight. Though shorter than him, my presence was no less imposing. "Ethan, is your definition of care inviting others to abandon their future, throw away their studies to chase an illusory dream, and use their parents' hard-earned money to play entrepreneur? If that's kindness, then forgive me, but I truly don't dare accept it." Every word I spoke was like a stone thrown into a still pond. The entire cafeteria fell utterly silent. Everyone knew Ethan had been boasting about his startup recently, but no one had dared to call him out like I just did. Ethan's face immediately contorted. He was used to being praised, used to me always obeying him without question. This public defiance of mine was nothing less than a colossal slap to his ego. He ground his teeth. "What do you know? That's vision, something bookworms like you will never understand in a lifetime." "Oh, vision?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning sincere inquiry. "Then can young Master Ethan's vision tell me how much capital your $1 million project has raised so far? What's the detailed business plan, market analysis, competitor analysis, potential risks? Have you done any of that? Or does your vision merely consist of fanciful drawings on paper and empty promises?" I had hit a nerve. In my past life, I was the one who ran around everywhere, racking my brain to write those shoddy plans for him. I knew better than anyone. Ethan's so-called company was nothing more than an empty shell built on arrogance and ignorance. Ethan was speechless, his face flushing crimson with anger and shame. He couldn't answer any of my questions. Mia saw the situation turning sour and quickly pulled his sleeve. Ethan, don't bother with her. Jane must be stressed from studying, that's why she's talking nonsense. Stressed? Ethan shook Mia's hand off, his eyes blazing as he stared at me. Fine, Jane, you want to play the academic ace? Then let's make a bet. The entire cafeteria erupted in murmurs again. Next month's exam, he enunciated each word, if you don't make it into the top 10 in the entire grade, you have to apologize to Mia in front of everyone. And from now on, if I tell you to go east, you're not allowed to go west. It was a deeply humiliating bet. Top 10 in the entire grade was a position I, with my dismal past performance, could never hope to reach. He wanted to corner me, to force me to bow my head in defeat in front of everyone. Mia stood beside him, ill-concealed triumph in her eyes. In the stifling silence, I subtly curved my lips. Top 10, I shook my head, my voice carrying clear disappointment. Ethan, is that truly the extent of your vision? He froze. What do you mean? I'll bet, I said, looking directly into his eyes, my gaze sharp as a knife. But not for top 10, for top 3. If I lose, I accept all your conditions. But if I win, I paused, my gaze sweeping over Mia's paling face, then returning to Ethan. From now on, you and your soulmate will stay as far away from my life as possible. Boom, my declaration exploded like a bomb in the middle of the cafeteria. She's crazy, that girl must be crazy, top 3 in the entire grade. That's a position only Liam and Mia can even hope to compete for. Ethan, enraged by my audacity, let out a mocking laugh. Fine, very well, Jane. I'll wait and see how you manage to get into the top 3. With that, he pulled Mia and turned to leave. I calmly sat back down, picked up my chopsticks, and put a piece of meat into my mouth. All eyes around me were still fixed on me, but I pretended not to notice. I couldn't lose this bet. In a not-so-distant corner of the cafeteria, Liam quietly set down his tray, pushed up his glasses, and a subtle, unreadable glint flashed in his eyes through the lenses. From that day on, I officially became the most notorious lunatic in school. The bet between Ethan and me spread like wildfire. Not a single person believed I could do it. I became the punchline of all their jokes. I ignored them. There wasn't much time left, so I threw myself into studying like a moth to a flame. During the day, in class, I utilized every second to listen to lectures. At night, when the whole house was fast asleep, I would switch on my old desk lamp, diligently working through one stack of practice problems after another. Knowledge forgotten for 10 years now had to be painstakingly pieced back together, bit by bit. Sometimes I was so exhausted I'd collapse at my desk and drift off, only to dream of dying in that cold rented room, jolting awake with my shirt drenched in sweat. The fear and hatred from my past life had transformed into the strongest possible motivation, pushing me relentlessly forward. A week before the exam, the school suddenly announced that to improve quality, this month's exam papers would be drafted by the Provincial Department of Education's specialized team, with difficulty comparable to the National College Entrance Exam. This news came like a cold shower. The entire 12th grade block groaned and complained, but only Mia breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at me with eyes full of provocation and pity. It seemed even heaven itself wanted to help her. That entire last week before the exam, I lived like a ghost. I refused all activities, ignored all gossip. In the eyes of others, I was a moth flying headlong into death. In Mia and Ethan's eyes, I was a comedian performing her final act before a humiliating curtain call. They didn't know the fire within me was raging more fiercely than ever. The harder the exam, the better. It would be the perfect stage for me to crush their confidence. The first day of exams, math, I walked into the exam room with an unnervingly calm demeanor. Desks and chairs were rearranged. The proctor was a teacher from another school. The atmosphere was so serious you could hear every breath. Ethan wasn't in the same exam room as me, but Mia was. She sat at the diagonal desk above me, occasionally glancing back, her eyes a mix of disdain and anticipation for a good show. The bell rang, the exam papers were distributed, and the room instantly filled with gasps of horror. The exam was truly hellish. The very first question was a complex spatial geometry problem demanding extremely high abstract thinking. Many students broke out in a cold sweat, their faces turning pale after reading the questions. Mia, too, frowned, biting her lip, clearly facing a major challenge. Only I, after a quick scan of the entire paper, let out a sigh of relief. Difficult, but not unsolvable. 10 years of grappling with debt in my past life had given me an unnerving ability to see through the essence of problems. No matter how complex the shell these problems wore, their core remained basic theorems and formulas. The only question was whether the solver had enough calm and sharpness to discern them. I picked up my pen and began to write. Each number, each calculation, each step of reasoning flowed smoothly from my pen. I didn't solve them in order. I tackled the most certain point-scoring questions first, then returned to the trickiest ones. Time passed. The scratching of pens in the exam room gradually thinned, replaced by sighs and the helpless rustle of exam papers. I finished the exam with 30 minutes to spare. After checking it once from beginning to end, certain there were no errors, I put down my pen, crossed my arms, and quietly observed. Mia was still grappling with the last question, her forehead dotted with sweat. She looked up, met my calm gaze. The envy and anger in her eyes became even more pronounced. Time's up, papers collected. When I handed in my exam, the middle-aged proctor couldn't help but glance at me again. My exam paper was filled with neat, clean handwriting, not a single erasure. During the break between the two subjects, I didn't go anywhere. I just sat in my spot, closed my eyes to rest, and mentally reorganized the knowledge for the next exam. "Did you do well on the test?" A familiar voice rang out. Ethan was leaning against my exam room door, his eyes scrutinizing me. I opened my eyes, didn't answer his question, but instead asked him back, "What about you? Did your vision help you solve any problems?" Ethan choked, his face darkening. "Don't get cocky so soon, it's only the first subject." Just then, Mia walked over, her face tired but still trying to smile. "Ethan, the paper was too hard, I had to skip the last question. Jane probably did too, don't blame her." A perfect, best friend act, I just found it ridiculous. Just because you couldn't do it doesn't mean others couldn't either. I stood up and walked past them to get some fresh air outside. The moment I walked past Mia, she suddenly slipped and fell towards me. Reflexively, I reached out to steady her. At that very instant, I felt something small and cool being slipped into my uniform pocket. Her movement was swift and discreet. If I hadn't been on guard beforehand, I definitely wouldn't have noticed. I stood still, letting her steady herself using my arm. "Thanks, Jane, I almost fell." I looked deep into her eyes, smiling faintly. "It's nothing, just be a little more careful next time." Mia faltered slightly under my gaze, but quickly regained her composure, pulling Ethan away. I stood still, my hand in my pocket clenching the small piece of paper that had just been slipped in. Just as I thought, she would never let me take my exams in peace. The second subject, literature. As the proctor was reading the exam rules, Mia suddenly raised her hand. "Teacher, I want to report Jane for cheating." The entire exam room instantly erupted, all eyes turning to me. The proctor's face hardened. "Speak clearly." Mia stood up, pointing at me, her voice full of self-righteousness. "During the break, I saw her secretly looking at study materials. I'm certain she's hidden a cheat sheet on her person." An accusation without proof, yet powerful enough to ruin a student. The proctor walked down to my desk. "Jane, do you have anything to say?" I calmly stood up, shook my head. "I have nothing to say. I didn't do it, I didn't do it." Mia scoffed. "Then do you dare let the teacher search you?" I looked directly into her eyes, my gaze chilling. "A search is fine, but what if nothing is found? Mia, do you dare to bet? If I'm clean, you'll have to stand in front of the whole school and bow your head to apologize to me for falsely accusing me." Mia faltered slightly, clearly not expecting me to counterattack, but she was certain the paper was tucked neatly into my pocket, so she immediately sneered. "Fine, I'm just afraid you don't have the guts." This was her ultimate goal. As long as that piece of paper was found in my pocket, I couldn't deny it. Being caught cheating would not only nullify my exam results, but also be recorded in my academic record. My future would be over. It was a truly venomous move. "All right," I nodded unexpectedly. "I agree." I didn't just agree, I proactively took everything out of my pockets and placed it on the desk. A pen, an eraser, some loose change, and not a single piece of paper. Mia was stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. I looked at her, a slight smirk on my lips. "What's wrong? Are you looking for this?" I slowly opened my other palm. A crumpled piece of paper lay undisturbed within it. Before everyone's astonished eyes, I calmly unfolded the paper and held it out to the proctor. "Teacher, this is the cheat sheet Mia mentioned, but it's not mine, because on it, I paused for a moment, looking directly into Mia's now deathly pale face, are all the answers to this morning's math exam. And this handwriting, everyone in the class could recognize whose it was. The entire exam room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Mia's beautiful face was as white as paper, drained of all color. She stammered, her lips trembling. You're talking nonsense. That's not my handwriting. You're imitating my handwriting to frame me. It was a weak rebuttal, but the only lifeline she could cling to at that moment. The proctor picked up the paper, compared it to Mia's name on her exam sheet, her brows knitting tightly. The handwriting truly was identical. False accusation? I scoffed, a smile of pity on my lips. Mia, you can imitate the shape of the letters, but can you imitate a habit? I turned to the proctor, my voice clear and precise. Teacher, Mia has a habit when writing the number 4. She always writes it open-mouthed, never closed. You can check all her old test papers in her academic file. I challenge her to write a closed-mouthed 4. This was an extremely tiny detail I had observed in my past life. An unconscious habit that couldn't be changed overnight, and certainly couldn't be perfectly imitated. Upon hearing this, Mia staggered as if about to collapse. She had lost, utterly and completely. The proctor immediately understood the problem. She looked at Mia with extreme disappointment, then sternly said, Mia, come with me to the principal's office. This matter needs to be reported clearly. Just then, the bell for the start of the exam rang. The proctor turned to me, her gaze a little complex. Jane, go back to your seat. This matter will not affect your exam. Mia was led away amidst the stunned silence of the entire exam room. From this moment on, her life as an academic goddess bore an indelible stain. I calmly sat down and picked up my pen, but deep down, I felt no joy. This was just the beginning. The road I had to travel was still very long. The incident of Mia trying to frame me in the exam room quickly spread throughout the school. But the outcome of the disciplinary actions stunned everyone. Mia was only criticized, made to write a self-reflection, and given a public warning in front of the whole school. There were no harsher penalties. I knew this was due to the homeroom teacher and probably Mia's family shielding her. They wanted to downplay the incident as much as possible to protect the reputation of a gifted student. During the Monday morning assembly, Mia stood on the podium, reading her self-reflection with tearful eyes. She claimed she acted foolishly due to immense pressure, hoping everyone, especially Jane, would forgive her. Her pitiful voice garnered sympathy from quite a few people. I stood below, silently observing her act. Forgive her? Ridiculous. If I had been caught, would I have received such leniency? After the assembly, Ethan blocked my path in the hallway. His face was filled with murderous intent. Jane, are you satisfied? He ground out. Pushing Mia to this extent, you're happy, aren't you? What kind of person have you become? I looked him straight in the eyes. What kind of person? Someone who doesn't want to be harmed by others is a bad person? Ethan, your logic is truly astonishing. He was so angry he raised his hand, but then lowered it. She was just temporarily confused. Did you really have to be so ruthless? Ruthless? I scoffed. When she slipped that cheat sheet into my pocket, why didn't you call her ruthless? When she tried to destroy my entire future, why didn't you call her malicious? Or in your eyes, only Mia's tears are valuable while my life isn't worth a penny? Ethan was completely speechless. Ethan, I took a step closer, lowering my voice. You should go ask your dear soulmate why she had to resort to such a cowardly trick. Was it because she knew that if she competed fairly, she wouldn't stand a chance against me? With that, I sidestepped him and walked away. I knew my last words were like a needle piercing straight into the egos of both Ethan and Mia. Sure enough, after that day, the atmosphere in class became incredibly strange. Mia began to openly confront me. She gathered a group of female students who glared at me with hostile eyes wherever they went. Rumors about me also started to surface. They said I was jealous of Mia and had set her up, that I was calculating and manipulative. I became an outcast, but I didn't care. My time was precious. On the day the monthly exam results were announced, the entire 12th grade was like a chaotic marketplace. The scores were posted on the large bulletin board in the schoolyard, drawing everyone to crowd around. I didn't push my way in. I just stood back, waiting for the crowd to thin. Oh my God, look, first place is still Liam. Total score 735, what a monster. Second place, Mia, 707 points. Still keeping up her performance, huh? Wait, third place. Who's third place, Jane? What a strange name. 708 points. Impossible. How could this be? The whispers grew louder and louder. Jane's name suddenly became the center of all attention. I heard my name being called but remained calmly standing. 708 points, barely enough. My goal is elite university. This score still has a gap. Ethan and Mia emerged from the crowd, both their faces looking extremely unpleasant. Especially Mia, she stared intently at my name on the scoreboard, her hands clenched tightly. She had only surpassed me by a mere 2 points. Her second-place position had never been threatened so closely before. Ethan walked towards me, his gaze complex. I didn't wait for him to finish. The bet, do you remember it? He froze. I glanced at Mia, who stood not far away, then turned back to look directly into Ethan's eyes. I'm in the top 3. As per our agreement from now on, you two will kindly get out of my life. With that, I turned my back and walked away without a hint of lingering emotion. Behind me, I could feel 2 pairs of eyes, one filled with resentment, the other with disbelief, fixed firmly on me. But I hadn't expected that just as I had taken a few steps, a figure silently blocked my path. It was Liam, the top academic student who always seemed like an emotionless statue. He gently pushed up his glasses and handed me a notebook. Physics key points notes. His voice was low, completely unruffled. Your optics section is still weak. Take it. The entire schoolyard seemed to hold its breath. Liam, who never spoke more than 3 sentences to anyone, who was an untouchable presence in the eyes of every female student, was actively handing me his notes. I looked up at him. Under the sunlight, his glasses couldn't conceal his eyes, deep and tranquil as an autumn lake. There was no pity, no teasing, only an unusual calmness. Why? For a moment, I was suspicious, but then I quickly dismissed it. Whatever his motive, what he was giving me right now was exactly what I needed most. Knowledge had no sin. Thank you. I took the notebook, my voice devoid of emotion, 2 simple words, neither more nor less. Liam gave a slight nod, sidestepped me and Ethan, and quietly departed as silently as he had arrived. But his appearance had left behind an earthquake. Oh my God, Liam gave Jane his notes. What's going on? The academic god who hasn't spoken a word in 1,000 years is helping a bottom feeder, or is there something going on? The chatter was like a disturbed beehive, but none of it was as terrifying as Ethan's gaze. He looked at me, then followed Liam's, retreating back with his eyes, his gaze shifting from astonishment to anger, and finally, a frenzied possessiveness. It was as if a toy he had discarded had suddenly been picked up by someone else and treated as a treasure. His ego was crushed miserably. Jane, he ground his teeth, you're really something, just a little achievement, and you're already rushing to seduce others, are you? I tightened my grip on the notebook, finding his words utterly ridiculous. Ethan, what right do you have to say that to me? What are you to me? He was speechless once again. Mia quickly ran over, pulling Ethan's arm, her beautiful face now brimming with jealousy. Ethan, let's go. Don't bother with someone so shameless. Who knows what kind of trick she used to get that notebook? With that, she shot me a venomous glare, then pulled Ethan away. I stood there, ignoring the probing gazes around me, looking down at the notebook in my hand. Liam's handwriting was exquisite, strong, and clear. Every formula, every key point, every advanced problem type was systematically organized. This wasn't just a notebook, it was the essence of a genius's thought. It was more valuable than anything. In the following days, my life became even more difficult. The incident of the academic genius gifting me his notes turned me into an eyesore for all of Liam's fangirls. Mia, emboldened, subtly incited them, painting me as a vixen who seduced male students to achieve her goals. My desk occasionally had water spilled on it, books in my drawer were defaced, and some even deliberately tripped me on the stairs. But they were mistaken. These childish games were nothing more than a tickle compared to what I had endured in my past life. I silently endured, silently cleaned up, silently moved forward. My composure made the bullies find me boring and uninteresting. All my time and mind were completely focused on my studies. Liam's notebook was like a golden key, helping me unlock the final doors of knowledge where I was still stuck. I realized my optics section indeed had gaps. Liam's problem-solving mindset helped me fill them perfectly. Occasionally, in the library or hallway, I'd pass Liam. He was still the same cold and distant. We didn't exchange words, just a slight nod of greeting. A strange relationship, not quite friendship, yet with an unspoken understanding. The final exams, the most crucial ones before the college entrance exam, were fast approaching. The entire school was tense as a bowstring. That evening, as I was the last to stay late studying, Ethan suddenly pushed open the classroom door and walked in. He wasn't alone. Behind him were two unfamiliar male students who looked like thugs. My heart pounded once. I had a bad feeling. Ethan walked straight to my desk, propped his hands on it, leaned down, his eyes on me complex and threatening. "Jane, I'm giving you one last chance." His voice was hoarse. "Give up. Don't come to school to take the exam tomorrow. Tell everyone you're sick. I can pretend that bet never existed." I lifted my head, looking him straight in the eyes. "Why?" "Why?" he sneered, a hint of self-mockery in his laugh. "Because I don't want to see you lose so miserably, and I don't want to see you standing next to Liam. That spot was always meant for me. So that's it. His arrogant ego wouldn't allow me to surpass him, nor would it allow me to belong to anyone else." "What if I don't agree?" I asked, my hand in the desk drawer gripping a metal compass tightly. Ethan's face hardened. He stood up straight, taking a step back. "Then don't blame me." As soon as he finished speaking, the two male students behind him immediately stepped forward. One grabbed my shoulders tightly, the other snatched my school bag, dumping all my books and papers onto the floor. Liam's notebook fell out. One of them picked it up, grinning disgustingly. "Is this it, brother Ethan? Looks pretty valuable." "Burn it," Ethan ordered coldly, without a hint of hesitation. No, for a moment, I truly panicked. I could endure bullying, being isolated, but that notebook was Liam's hard work and my hope. I used all my strength to bite the hand of the guy holding me, struggling free and lunging towards the one holding the notebook. But I was a step too late. The lighter flicked on, and a blue flame licked at the corner of the notebook. At that very critical moment, the classroom door was kicked open once again. "Stop!" a voice, cold as ice yet strangely familiar, commanded. Liam stood in the doorway, the disciplinary teacher behind him. His gaze swept over the messy pile of books on the floor, past the flickering flame, and finally settled on Ethan's horrified face. For the first time, I saw a terrifying flicker of anger in his usually calm eyes. The flame on the corner of the notebook was immediately extinguished by the disciplinary teacher's shoe. The student holding the lighter flinched, hastily dropping it as if it were burning his hand. The disciplinary teacher, known for his impartiality, had a face as dark as the bottom of a pot. "What are you all doing here? Gathering together, destroying property, threatening a fellow student right before exams? Do you not want to graduate anymore?" Despite his shock at seeing Liam and the disciplinary teacher, Ethan quickly regained his composure. He knew panicking now would be fatal. "Teacher," he bowed his head, feigning remorse. "We were just joking around with Jane a little. Friends tease each other, there was no other intention." "Joking around?" the disciplinary teacher scoffed, pointing at the messy books on the floor and the singed notebook. "Using a lighter to joke around? Do you take me for a fool, Ethan?" "No, not at all." Ethan still tried to deny it. Just then, Liam, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but each word landed like a hammer blow. "Teacher, that is not an ordinary notebook." All eyes turned to him. Liam walked over, picked up the notebook, and gently brushed off the dust. "These are my personal study materials, prepared for the National Olympic team. I lent them to Jane because I recognized her immense potential and that she could bring glory to our school." A perfect lie, but its weight was terrifyingly immense. Damaging a classmate's property was one thing, but destroying National Olympic team study materials, obstructing a gifted student from bringing glory to the school, that was an entirely different matter. The gravity of the situation had just been elevated to a completely different level. Ethan's face went from pale to ashen. He hadn't expected Liam to be so ruthless. A single sentence had directly driven him to his downfall. The disciplinary teacher heard this, and his anger erupted fiercely. "Good, very good. Ethan, you and these two students, all of you, come to the principal's office with me immediately." The three of them were led away like criminals. Before leaving, Ethan turned back to look at me, his eyes filled with hatred and disbelief. He couldn't understand why Liam had sided with me. Only Liam and I remained in the classroom. I bent down, silently picking up my books one by one. My hands were still slightly trembling. Liam placed the notebook, its corner singed, on my desk. "I'm sorry I got you involved." I looked up and shook my head. "No, I should thank you, if it weren't for you." "Knowledge in your head can't be burned," he interrupted me, his voice still calm. "But there are some kinds of trash that need to be thoroughly cleaned out." With that, he gently pushed up his glasses, turned, and left, leaving me with his tall, slender back, which somehow felt unusually steadfast. I sat down, looking at the black, burnt corner of the notebook, a complex emotion stirring within me. In my past life, Liam and I were like two parallel lines that never intersected. In this life, he had appeared again and again at my most difficult moments. Why? The school's punishment was swift and decisive. Ethan and the two other male students were suspended for 1 week, had their conduct grade lowered by 1 level, and it was recorded in their academic files. A 1-week suspension, right during the final exams. This meant Ethan would miss the most crucial exam. The bet between him and me, he wouldn't even have the right to participate anymore. It was a punishment more painful than a physical beating. The entire school buzzed with gossip. Ethan's family, I heard, had caused a commotion at school. But this time, perhaps because Liam had intervened, the school was exceptionally firm. No one bothered me anymore. Mia, after hearing about Ethan's disciplinary action, also became much more subdued. She just studied in silence, occasionally casting me a venomous glance. But I no longer considered her an opponent. My mind was now solely on the upcoming exams. The first day of exams, I walked into the exam room with a calmness and confidence I had never felt before. The previous incident had acted as a stimulant, making my will even more unyielding. I had to win, not just for the bet but for myself, and because Liam had believed in me. The exam papers were distributed, and as expected, they were extremely difficult. But when I put my pen to paper, the numbers, the formulas, the knowledge I had honed through countless nights flowed out effortlessly. Liam's notebook had helped me build a tight and logical thinking system. Every problem, no matter how complex, became simple and clear under my pen. 3 days of exams flew by in a flash. On the final day, as I stepped out of the last exam room, the sunset glowed warmly on me, unusually comforting. I took a deep breath, feeling as if a 1,000-pound weight had been lifted. I had given it my all. In the distance, beneath the phoenix tree, a familiar figure stood. Liam, he saw me and walked towards me. "How did it go?" "Not bad," I smiled, a truly relaxed smile after days of tension. He nodded. "Elite University has a really good beef noodle shop. I hope we'll have a chance to go there together someday." With that, he walked past me, heading towards the school gate. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. Liam's words were like a seed planted in my heart, quietly sprouting. Elite University, beef noodle shop. Those images became a sweet goal, a warm source of motivation amidst the thorny path ahead. The days waiting for exam results were the most tormenting, but for me, the torment didn't come from anxiety, but from my own family. As soon as I got home, my mother threw a basket full of vegetables at me. "Exams are over, aren't they? Go sell all these vegetables at the market. Don't spend all day holed up in your room reading useless stuff anymore." My father, sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper, chimed in, "What's the point of a girl studying so much?" "Your mother's right, knowing a few characters is enough. What's important is knowing how to make money, and later, how to take care of your husband's family." Those familiar words were identical to my past life. I had once suffered because of these words, argued, and tried to prove myself. But now, in my heart, there was only a terrifying calm. Arguing with them was futile. The only way to escape was to use absolute strength to shatter every chain they wished to shackle around my neck. I silently carried the basket of vegetables to the market. In the afternoon, I brought back a stack of small bills, not a penny missing, and handed them to my mother. She beamed with satisfaction. "Isn't this better? If you had been this diligent from the start, our family wouldn't have suffered." I said nothing, returned to my room, and locked the door. I didn't rest. I pulled out sets of college entrance exam papers from recent years. I continued to work, continued to calculate. The real battle was still ahead. On the day the exam results were announced, the entire school erupted. The scores were posted in the schoolyard, but I didn't go there. I knew that place would surely be a chaotic scene. I went to a public phone booth, inserted a coin, and tremblingly dialed the inquiry number. The long tut-tut sound stretched on like an eternity. "Please enter your candidate number." I took a deep breath, reciting the number that was etched into my very bones. A monotonous female voice spoke through the receiver, reading out each subject. Math, 150 points. Literature, 138 points. English, 147 points. Natural sciences, 295 points. My heart felt like it stopped. Total score, 730 points. I stood petrified in the phone booth, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. They weren't tears of weakness, but of liberation. In my past life, I had lost everything. In this life, I had reclaimed it with my own hands. When I returned to school, the crowd had thinned. I slowly walked towards the bulletin board. A group of people was still standing there, but no one spoke a word. All were looking up, staring intently at the two names at the highest positions on the golden board. First place, Liam, total score 735. Second place, Jane, total score 730. Third place, Mia, total score 705. I had surpassed Mia, who was always considered the academic goddess, by a margin of 25 points, a margin that couldn't be excused, couldn't be rationalized, a resounding and humiliating slap in the face. Mia stood there, her beautiful face ashen, devoid of her usual arrogance. She stared intently at the number 730 next to my name, her eyes filled with panic and disbelief. She had lost miserably, without any chance of turning the tables. Just then, Ethan appeared from somewhere. His suspension had just ended. Seeing the scoreboard, the nonchalant smile on his lips instantly froze. He looked at my name, then at the number beside it. His pupils constricted. "Impossible," he muttered. I turned to face both of them. "The bet, I don't think I need to remind you, do I?" Mia bit her lip until it bled. Ethan clenched his hands tightly, veins bulging on the back of his hands. This humiliation was more unbearable than death for someone as arrogant as him. "Jane," Ethan ground out, "what method did you use?" I smiled. "Method? While you were busy with your $1 million project, and she was busy thinking of ways to frame others, I used that time to study. It's as simple as that." With that, I turned my back and left, not bothering to look at their ashen faces anymore. But when I got home, my parents had already heard the news from the neighbors. They weren't happy, nor were they proud. Their eyes looked at me as if I were a valuable commodity. "Jane, you're back." My mother pulled me down to sit, her attitude unusually cordial. "I heard you scored very high on your exams, so clever, you truly are my daughter." My father also nodded. "The Chen family at the end of the street, their son is 5 years older than you, and he's a director at a small company. They heard you're smart and are quite fond of you. Why don't you go to their house for dinner this weekend and get to know him a bit?" "That's right," my mother chimed in. "With such high scores, the dowry certainly won't be low. If you marry him, your brother will have capital to get married later, and your parents will gain face." For a moment, I felt a chill run through my entire body. They didn't care about my dreams, didn't care about elite university. In their eyes, my scores were merely a tool to exchange for a dowry, a stepping stone for their son's future. Their indifference and selfishness were even more terrifying than Ethan and Mia combined. "I'm not going," I said coldly. "I'm going to college. I'm going to elite university." "What?" my mother shrieked, her cordial expression instantly replaced by ferocious anger. "Are you crazy? What's the point of going to university? It wastes money and resources. We've fed and educated you enough. You need to get married, take care of this family." "This isn't a family." I stood up, looking her straight in the eyes. "This is a cage, and I won't stay in this cage anymore." You unfilial child." My father angrily slammed the table, leaping to his feet. "Today I'm going to beat you to death." He grabbed the feather duster and lunged at me. In my past life, I would have trembled, cried, and begged for forgiveness. But this life, I wouldn't back down. Just as the duster was about to strike, I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled a fruit knife from my bag, held it up, and pointed it straight ahead. "Dad," I enunciated each word, my eyes as cold as ice. "Just try me." The entire noodle shop fell into a strange silence. Ethan's gaze was fixed on the envelope on the table, then moved to Liam's calm face. Jealousy, anger, and above all, a heavy sense of defeat were clearly visible in his eyes. He had lost, not just to me on the scoreboard, but utterly and completely to Liam. I looked at the envelope, then at Liam. I pushed it towards him. "This investment has a very high interest rate, you know." Liam didn't even spare Ethan a glance. He only looked at me, a nearly imperceptible curve playing on the corner of his lips. "I can take it." I picked up the envelope without hesitation, but I didn't see it as a gift. Consider it a loan. Once I'm at elite university, I'll pay you back with both principal and interest. My action was decisive and fair, like a final knife thrust, completely severing any remaining hope Ethan had. He staggered back a step, then turned and practically fled from the noodle shop. His friends hastily followed. The space finally returned to silence. I opened the envelope. Inside was a neat stack of money, enough to cover my tuition for the entire first year and still leave some for living expenses. Why? I asked. It was a question I had hidden in my heart for a long time. Liam slowly finished his last bite of noodles, put down his chopsticks, and looked up at me. No, why? I just didn't want someone as interesting as you to be buried in this place. With that, he stood up, paid, and left. See you at elite university. The train to Beijing departed early one morning. I didn't tell anyone, not even my homeroom teacher. I only left him a thank you letter. I pulled my small suitcase, inside which lay my future. As the train slowly pulled away, leaving behind the small town that had imprisoned me for 2 lifetimes, I didn't look back. The past was ashes, ahead lay the dawn. Life at elite university was even more dazzling than I had imagined. It gathered the most brilliant minds in the country. For the first time, I breathed the air of academic freedom, debating with like-minded friends. I was no longer a lunatic or a bookworm. Here, my efforts were recognized, my talents cherished. I plunged into my studies, joined clubs, participated in research projects. I was like a dry sponge, ravenously absorbing every essence of knowledge. Liam and I were in different departments, but we often met in the library. We rarely spoke, but each other's presence was like a silent encouragement. Occasionally, he would toss me a book, with sections of knowledge he thought I might need marked inside. I used the remaining money, along with the business knowledge accumulated from my past life, to start a small online business. I took on coding for small projects, advised online stores on strategy. The business grew unexpectedly fast. After just 1 year, I had repaid all the investment to Liam, along with interest higher than the bank's rate. The day I gave him the money, he just looked at me and said, "Your speed is faster than I expected." I told you I'd pay back both principal and interest. I smiled. He took the money. So, what about the beef noodle shop? I froze. He pushed up his glasses, a hint of amusement in his eyes. I haven't withdrawn that investment yet. Many years later, during an online class reunion, I heard news of the old crowd. Ethan never recovered after that shock. He failed his college entrance exams, and his fantastical business projects vanished into thin air. I heard he's now a salesperson in a supermarket in our hometown, his former arrogance worn away by life, leaving no trace. Mia got into a second-tier university. There, she was no longer a goddess, and no one sang her praises. She struggled in her new environment, eventually only managing to graduate with an average degree, finding an ordinary job, living an ordinary life. That bet from years ago had become a permanent scar on her ego. My parents, after I left, also went to the school to cause a few commotions, but it solved nothing. Without me, the economic burden weighed heavily on them. I heard they're trying to force my younger brother to drop out of school early to start working. A tragic loop, but I no longer cared. I still sent them money for support every month. That was my final responsibility. At 25, I graduated with an excellent degree and received job offers from leading tech corporations worldwide. But I declined them all. I used my accumulated capital to found my own startup company. That evening, I stood on the balcony of the luxury apartment I had bought myself in the heart of Beijing, looking down at the glittering stream of cars below, like a river of stars. A warm pair of arms wrapped around me from behind. "What are you thinking about?" Liam's deep, warm voice echoed in my ear. He was now a leading young researcher in his field. I smiled, leaning my head on his shoulder. "I'm thinking about where to open a beef noodle shop that would attract a lot of customers." Liam chuckled, tightening his embrace. "That noodle shop doesn't need to be crowded." I turned around, looking straight into his deep eyes. "Then how do I repay your investment?" He leaned down, his forehead touching mine, his voice as gentle as a spring breeze. "How about with your entire life?" I closed my eyes. In my past life, I was mired in a swamp. In this life, I stood atop the clouds. The path to elite university not only brought me knowledge but also freedom, a career, and this man. This life truly was too good.